Hi, welcome back. In this video, I am going to show you how to configure IPSec tunnel on Palo Alto Firewall VM 8.1.0 version. So configuring IPSec tunnel on Palo Alto Firewall is kind of simple and quick process, and I would say it is much better reliable in terms of configuration point of view. It's better than the other vendors. Let's go ahead and start configuring it. So I have opened my GNS3 simulator and I have created a project for this. So let me grab two firewalls, which would be establishing an IPsec tunnel between them. So PAVM1 and 2. These two firewalls will be configured with a IPsec tunnel, and the traffic would be routed through the tunnel. These two firewalls would be configured with IPsec tunnels, and traffic will be routed from the secure networks through the IPsec tunnel. And the routing would also be established and configured on the default virtual router. To make it simple, I'm just going to use one iOS router that would act as an ISP to just route the traffic between these two firewalls. Let's consider this has a site A and this has a site B, and these two sites will be talking through this ISP router. And in order to initialize these two firewalls and configure with a management port, I need a loopback interface on the GNS3, which I can grab it from cloud, and I need a layer 2 switch. So select the management port on the firewall and connect it to the layer 2 switch. Same thing with the other firewall as well. I now connect this switch to the Ethernet 3, which is my loopback interface on my PC. So I got to wait for these two firewalls to boot up and show up the login prompt. In the meantime, let me do the cabling. So I'm connecting this to the router and the other firewall as well to the router. So now it's a pretty simple design, which is a point to point kind of stuff. But so the network behind these two firewalls would be local network that would be on 192, which would obviously do not get routed outside the firewall, as it is a private network. It needs a NAT, and I'm not going to configure NAT on the firewall, so that we will get ensured that if the host behind firewall 1 talks to host behind firewall 2, that means the traffic is being routed through the tunnel. So I'm using the network 192.168.1.0/24 over here, and I will use 192.168.2.0/24 on behind the firewall 2. So this is the setup, and hopefully the firewalls should give me the prompt. Okay, finally we got the prompt to log into the firewall. So just a hint, as I always say, so if you have to log on to the Palo Alto VM for the initial time or for the first time, it should give you this prompt like PAVM login. So this is the correct prompt that will allow you to log into the firewall. Other than this, if you get any prompts just like I got earlier, like a PA login, they won't allow you to log in. Those are all for the factory manufacturer troubleshooting purpose, I guess, but we will not be allowed to log into that prompt. So now I got into the firewall. So let's configure the firewall. Let device system IP address. So I'm going to use 10.10.10.1 netmask 255.255.255.0 with default gateway has 10.10.10.2 with routing type has static. And now commit. So this commit should work. In the meantime, let me boot the other firewall as well and boot the router, and let me configure the router for the OSPF. So I'm using just the OSPF protocol to route the traffic between the two firewalls. So the commit was successful, which means we have configured the firewall to access to the management port. So let's check the configuration. So show system info to provide you the what's the management IP on the firewall, and the management IP is 10.10.10.1. So I'm going to use that and connect through the web browser. So my router is also booted up, and let me configure the router as well. So I'm configuring the port 0/0 on the router, which is connected to Palo Alto 1, using the IP address 20.20.1.1/20 with 24 subnet. So I'm shut, and the other interface with IP address 2.1 with same 24 subnet mask and no shut. So I have configured the two interfaces. Now let me configure the OSPF route also. So I'm advertising any network in the OSPF. So if it gets any network to this router, it would advertise, which is fine for me for now. It's since it is a simple network and as it is an ISP, a kind of it is supposed to advertise all the networks for now in the lab. So that is also been set up. I save the configuration just to double check. So run interface 0/0 0/1. So run includes section router OSPF1. This is it. This is the configuration I have done on the router. Really simple. So let's say if the PAVM2 is also booted up and ready to log in. Let me change my font size. So it does booted up perfectly, and it does give us prompt to log in. So let's log into the firewall 2. The username password is by default, that is admin. So let's configure this firewall as well. Configure set device system IP address .10.10.3 net mask, static. So commit. Let's wait till it gets committed. Okay, so the commit is successful. I will double check what's the configuration. The IP address is 10.10.10.3 and the gateway is 10.10.10.1. So we are good to access the two firewalls and get them configured. So let me open the browser. Okay, so let's log in with the default username password, and I will change it later on. Same thing with the other one. So now let's go to network. Let's configure the interfaces first. Default router, IP address, default router, security zone, trust. Enter the IP address. So this is the inside trust zone. So as I said, I will be using 192.168.1.1/24 IP network and make the interface up. Let's create a trust security profile, TTP SSH ping, no LLDP and things. Yeah, we are good. Okay, so I have configured the both interfaces. Let's go to the policies. What? Go to tunnel. Oh, let me go to policies. Everything is same default. So I have created a policy that will allow any traffic. So even the traffic that is coming from the IPSec tunnel will be allowed. So now, so this is the basic configuration for the interfaces and the traffic security policy. Now let's begin with the firewall tunneling, IPSec tunnel. To create IPSec tunnel, we need three things. One is tunnel interface, second IKE gateway, third IPSec tunnel. So we have to create these three things and then we are good to form a IPSec tunnel. So let's create a tunnel first. Tunnel interface, so I'm saying it is 100. No net flow profile, virtual router. Let's use the default security zone. I would recommend to create a new security zone for the VPN tunnel in just which would help us to monitor the tunnel as well. and to apply security policies on the tunnel. So IP address is not a mandatory stuff. If you want, you can create it in order to monitor the tunnel. If you don't want, then that's fine. And the security management profile would be ping because it is a tunnel. I don't want any others to get access to the firewall using this interface. Okay, so now we have configured the tunnel interface. Let's go to IKE gateway and configure the IKE. So let's VPN. I'm using the version IKE1 only mode for now. So we have three versions. We have two versions, but we have three options over here. IKE1, IKE2, and preferred IKE2 mode. All this does is very simple. They are straightforward. IKEV1 only mode will allow you to create IPSec tunnel with IKE version 1. And if you select the V2, it will only create the tunnel with the V2 version. And if the neighbor peer has the VKE1 enabled and not the VKE2, then the tunnel will not be able to form. So we got to make sure which version we are choosing in order to configure the tunnel. So the IKEV preferred mode will be a kind of both. It will support both modes. Like if you choose IKE2 preferred mode, version 2 preferred mode, which means if the neighbor has V1 and if this has V2, then go with the V1 as well. If it has V2 as well, the neighbor does have V2, then it would definitely form the V2. And if something happens in the version 2 tunnel relationship, then they fall back to the V1 and they continue on the V1, which is a good thing. So you can use any of these options. For now I will be using only one. And select the interface. This is an interface where the IPSec tunnel will be going out, which means it will be applied on my Ethernet 1. So I will be using this. This is my outgoing. This is my untrust interface where my tunnel comes and drops. Where the tunnel is going through. So we have to select an interface that will be going outside. So this is the IP address that's sitting on the interface that we have selected, the outgoing interface or where the tunnel will be passing through. So that's the interface of the tunnel passing through, IP address of that interface. And this is peer IP address, which is and I'm using pre-shared key, and there is an option for the certificate also, but I will not use the certificate. So the pre-shared key would be any password that you want to add. Once we have done that, the other option is local identification. The way how you want to identify the tunnel, this will identify from where the tunnel is originated and what's the destination of the tunnel. By that it would verify, okay, this is a legit packet, so I can allow it to form the IPSec relationship. The IP address would be the outside interface, the untrust interface where the tunnel is passing through. And the peer identification would as well be the IP address, and this would be the same as the peer IP address. So this is just kind of another level of verification process to form the neighbor relationship to create a tunnel. When we go to advanced options, we have enable passive mode, enable NAT traversal. If you have NAT configuration on the firewall where the users will be accessing the internet or any other services, and you don't want the traffic to go through this tunnel, or you want to exempt the tunnel from the traffic, then you can use this one. When it comes to the passive mode, if you enable the passive mode, then the tunnel will only be in the passive, which means it will keep on listening and it won't initiate the session. It won't initiate the session from this side. If the firewall has enabled passive mode on the IPSec tunnel, that means the firewall don't initiate the session and it won't enable the IPsec. It won't start the IPsec session, or it won't start the IPsec session. It keeps on just listening. It only starts when when it receives a packet. So it won't send any packet to form the IPsec tunnel, but it will form when it receives a packet and verifies that. If we enable passive mode, which means the firewall won't be initiated right away. So either way, at least the other way, the communication should start and then the session would form. So when it comes to the IKE version 1 profile, we have to choose what exchange mode you want. So we can choose the auto, which is recommended and which is best. You can choose both main or aggressive, or whatever best possible chance it would have. And when it comes to the crypto creep profile, there are already default profiles over here. So this should be GCM 256, which is defaultly created. I would use that because that would give me a chance of hashing for 256. If we want, we can also create a new crypto profile, but this 256 should be good. SHA 256 should be good. So now click OK. So we have done all the configuration on the IKE gateway. So let's go to IPsec tunnel and add a tunnel. I named it as VPN. Same. Select the tunnel interface that we have created, which is tunnel.100, and the type is auto key. Address type IPv4, IKE gateway, VPN, crypto profile. I will be using 256. Show advanced options. So in the advanced options, it will also provide us the protection for the replay and the proxy IDs. We don't need any proxy IDs right now, so I'm not going to do that. And if you can choose the tunnel monitor, but if you have to choose the tunnel monitor, you have to assign an IP address for the VPN tunnel interface that we have created. But we did not create any IP address, since I said I won't be monitoring the tunnel, so that's fine for us now. So click OK, and we are completely done with the configuring tunnel. And before we do that, we have to do one more thing, which is we have to define a static route that will allow the firewall to know where to send the traffic when if it is a if it should go through the IPsec tunnel. So to do that, let's go over here. Let me create a default route first. Destination any. Okay, so I have created a default route, and now so this is a VPN route. The destination over here is the other side of the other network that we are trying to reach. Okay, and the interface would be Ethernet 0. The tunnel 100, and we don't know the IP address, so we're not going to choose the IP address. So we are only just choosing the interface. So which defines that when the traffic is destined to this network, the firewall will send the traffic to only this interface, and once it is on the interface, it will be routed to the other end. So this is the other part that we have to do, and we have done. So everything is done from one side of the firewall. So let this commit, and we open the other one. So let's verify. Yeah, so this commit is successful. So we have done all the IPsec tunnel configuration and initial setup for the firewall. So everything is good. If you see, the interface status is up. Okay, so now let's go to the other firewall and do the same thing. Configure the interface, layer 3, virtual router default, security zone, untrust, IPv4 address, link state up, management profile, ping, and everything is good. Same thing over here. Interface layer 3, no network profile, flow profile, virtual router default, security zone, trust, IPv4 192.168.2.1/24, advanced up, link state up, and management profile, trust, HTTPS, SSH, ping, and the rest would be good. Okay, let's go to policies, security policy, hello, all, source any, destination any, application default any. Okay, and yeah, so we have configured this also. So now let's go to tunnel, add a tunnel. I'll use the same number, no netflow profile, virtual router default, security zone, VPN, IPv4 no, advanced no, advanced management profile, ping, MTU default. So now let's go to IKE gateways, add an IKE gateway, let's name it as VPN, IKE v1 only, interface Ethernet 1, local IP address, here IP 20.20.1.2. We are not supposed to add any subnets, it should be only /32 IP address. In pre-shared key, same as the other firewall, so just don't forget that. So the password should be same as the other N firewall. And local identification, if you have done it on the A side, then you have to do on the B side also. That is my recommendation. Local identification would be the untrust interface IP address, and the peer identification would be the IP address as well, and it should be the peer IP address. So I have done that. Let's go to advanced, and exchange mode is auto. IKE crypto profile, it should be same as the side A, so which I have choose 256. That is good, and click OK. And now let's go to IPSec tunnels, add an IPSec tunnel, name, VPN, tunnel interface, tunnel 100, same default options. So select the VP IKE gateway and select the crypto profile which you have done on the side A as well. This should not change. This if any of these configurations change, then the tunnel would not be formed. So I have done all same as it is to the which are same to the other side. And now let me go to the virtual routers and create a new static route to the side A local network. So before that, I got to define a default route. Destination any. This is I'm going to use IP address since I know what's the IP address. Click OK. And now let's add the VPN route, destination 192.168.1.0/24. Interface is tunnel 100, IP next hop, none, and click OK. Commit, and let's select the IPSec tunnels. Okay, so commit is successful, and now it should start forming the. Okay, so the reason it is not forming the tunnel is there is no traffic to initiate on the both sides. So now I have to create a traffic, random traffic. So I will install a host behind each firewall. Then we can do the ping and it will initiate the traffic. So let me configure DHCP service over here, DHCP server. So 192.168.2.5.2.168.2.10. Let's make the mode as enabled. Same thing on the firewall A. So select the interface where you want to apply the DHCP service and click enable. Select the ping option before it allocates an IP address. So in the options, 1.1.1, this is the basic IP DHCP server configuration, and this should allow the host to get the IP address and run successfully. So by the time it gets committed, let's go and install the PC hosts. I have Ubuntu Cloud VMs on my GNS3, so just grab them, connect them to the firewall, and boot them up. This is behind the firewall 2 and this is behind the firewall 1. So it did receive an IP address and this as well. So let's ping one. So it can ping the gateway, which is good. Now let's ping the okay, so the traffic is not been routed, so which means we have to see what's going on with the firewalls. Yeah, I know why it is not, because there is no routing. I did not configure the OSPF on the firewalls, so let me configure that. So this is the area. I don't need range, I just need the interfaces. Okay, commit. Same thing on the other side. Yeah, the reason I unchecked this reject default route is if you check this box, it will reject the default routes to be advertised into the OSPF. So I just want the default routes to be advertised into the OSPF, because I'm not I'm not including the 192 network into this OSPF. So that was the reason why. Yeah. And additionally, you got check this allow redistribute default route. The area is 0 space, it's 1. Good. No virtual rings, all good. And yeah, so we are good now. Okay, click OK, commit. And I have to fix this over here. I did not enable the reject and export or redistribute in the default routes. So let me do that. Uncheck export allow redistribute default route, commit. Now so tunnel did not form yet. Okay, so the OSPF did not form any routes. Okay, so yeah, I have done an error over here when configuring the route. The default route I have chosen was to the self. So Okay, so this is because of the problem with the JNS3 simulation, the network cable. There was an issue with the connections between the router and the firewall. But now we can see the neighbor relationship, and the traffic is also been now pinged. They both can reach each other, which means the tunnel should have been formed. Yep. So if you see, yeah, this is how we can configure the IPSec tunnel on the Palo Alto firewall. And apologies for the troubleshooting. And yeah, this sometimes happens to me on the whenever I work on the GNS3 software, but that's fine. It's a software that is provided free, so things happen, and it's free of course. So we can get used with that. And so this is the simple way how we can do this is how we can create an IPsec tunnel. And hope you enjoyed it and you learned something. And please comment if you have any questions, or if you need any kind of specific configuration related to this, or anything related to Palo Alto firewalls. I'm happy to create a video and post it. And have a great day. Enjoy.